there are only two substantial forces that the United States deploys at the very front lines against Islamo-Nazism. Number one, our military. And number two, our churches and our synagogues. Now, it is very, very clear that without the U.S. military, without the young men and women who put themselves on the line every single day, we would not be safe. It is extraordinary, some of the work that has been done, some of it that you never hear about. And you never hear about it because of the sacrifices of our military. And our churches and synagogues, organized religion in this country, is absolutely crucial in terms of a defense against Islamo-Nazism, because you can't beat something with nothing. There is a war of ideas going on. When he talks about the imams in the prisons, those prisoners are going to hear something. It matters that they hear a Christian message or a Jewish message and not a message of radical Islam. And this is what they're finding in Europe. It's one of the reasons that in so many nations in Europe there is, and even in Scandinavia, I was talking to someone recently about Sweden, there is the beginnings of a Christian revival in parts of the world where basically organized religion has been dead. Why? Because people understand. People are parched for spiritual content throughout Europe. Thank God we don't have that problem in the United States. We remain the most devoutly religious country in the West. Now, what does this have to do with the election? Okay, who are the two biggest boogeymen for the organized left? It's the military and it's organized religion. And a consistent, in this administration, a consistent disrespect for these two crucial institutions that are at the very heart of winning this war in which we are engaged. And make no mistake, we are in a war. And as Steve Emerson made so clear, we can't afford to lose it. One of the ways we could lose it is allowing the current direction of this country to continue. That direction has to be changed.
Amen.
We're not at war with Islam. We are at war with radical Islamists and jihadists. And there are hundreds of millions of those, so it's not like it's a small task. But he was very careful, and I appreciate that. I am in the middle of Bloody Crimes by James Swanson. It's the book about the aftermath of the collapse of the Confederacy, Jeff Davis's flight, and Abraham Lincoln's funeral. And after we talked about it, he brought me back to the hotel so I could rest up a little bit, and I started to read again. And just after we'd been talking about it, just before we came in here today to talk about what's going on in the country, I started reading about the processing of the Lincoln funeral train from Washington to Springfield. It took 13 days to deliver President Lincoln's body, and it stopped all the way along. And as the author, James Swanson, notes, in a democracy, events take on lives of their own. You know, they're not planned. You are not ordered to show up. You are not ordered to organize in the 9/11 and 9/12 groups. You're not ordered to join a Tea Party. You're not ordered to come tonight. You're not ordered to support Steve Emerson. Things take on lives of their own. And the spontaneity about which organized this extraordinary outpouring of grief, very moving and very unplanned and wholly unanticipated. And I think what we are in the middle of in the next 30 days is the culmination of another self-organizing democratic impulse. The assault on the American mainstream has been unrelenting for 2 years, and now the payback is coming. After the Scott Brown election in Massachusetts in January, a lot of the exit polls revealed that though it was not much discussed and never debated between the Attorney General of Massachusetts and Scott Brown, the issue of trying the Islamists in Manhattan was a major issue in that election. Yes, Obamacare was number one, but people were astonished and upset and fearful of the decision of the Obama administration to try the 9/11 attackers, particularly Khalid Sheikh Mohammed in New York, and they voted that fear.
Don't count on your opponent being lame. And that's why it does seem to me that Republicans have to be positive and direct. It's not enough to talk about the disasters of the last 2 years. They're there. People know him. You don't have to remind them. What we have to talk about is a positive and realistic vision for change, beginning with stopping the runaway spending. And if President Obama tries to address that, then we can call his bet and raise him in terms of actually doing something about the deficit that is ultimately an even more dire threat to the security of this nation than terrorism.
You know what's amazing to me, when we were watching the video, President Obama the campaigner and President Obama the president, two totally different people. So how can people even begin to trust him now? PAYGO, like you said, been lost since 2007. It was their bill. They haven't done it. They make exceptions. Are the Kool-Aid drinkers out there, or the Obama followers, just that enamored at his celebrity that they'll just vote for him in lockstep? I mean, that to me is the scariest part of this, is these people that, even though they're challenging him, they're just not engaged in real truth and what's going on. They're voting for personality.
The problem is they're not engaged in anything. There was a stunning poll from Pew Research that came out on Friday, and it's mind-blowing. You know what it shows? What percentage of Democrats can identify? 42% of all Democrats cannot identify who is vice president of the United States. Okay, they either get it wrong or they don't know. So this is the problem. Look, we're talking to the elite of the elite of the elite, not in terms of money, not in terms of background, but in terms of engagement. Most people don't know squat about what's going on in this country. And that's why what's so important here, the work really is the work of talking and educating and getting people involved so they know the basics. You know how many of your neighbors and friends don't know the beginning of the damage that is being done to this country and the desperate need to stop it.
You know, we've got truth on our side. We do. And it's up to all of us, like Michael said, to engage our neighbors, not with confrontational dialogue. Just send them stories. Just show them the hypocrisy that's going on in D.C., and they'll come around.
Would the members, both present and past, the American military stand up? We always like to say hello and thank you for your service.